Our yacht was stinking in admin and paperwork, but I found the solution. I used this productivity software called ClickUp to run our yacht like a business. It tracks our tasks, schedules, and documents all in one app. Now, safety drills are logged as a task, crew scheduling is automated, and important docs are stored and searchable. What used to take me 3 days a month now takes me half a day. It's super customizable whether you're sailing a yacht or scaling a company. Get our custom yacht management template today when you try ClickUp for free at clickup.com/rich podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rich as Fuck podcast, the show where we talk about money, life, investing, and all things good in that yachty life. Today, I'm sitting down with Madison Jay. She's the founder and owner, I guess, of Shore to Sea, an ex-yachty, an Aussie legend. Really happy to have you on the show today. And for all our listeners, please remember that this show is purely educational and informative. I'm not a financial advisor. Stop listening to everything I say. Blah, blah, blah. Now that that's out of the way, hello, Madison. Welcome. And where are you finding yourself today?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm on the sunny Gold Coast in Australia, where I've based myself since I left yachting about 3 years ago now.
Nice one. And how's that been? Is it as good as it looks?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. I think that there are pros and cons to both of the lives, the land life and the yacht life. But I feel like I've kind of got the best of both worlds in a way because I'm still in the industry. I can still attend boat shows and stuff like that. But yeah, I love my life in Australia.
Nice one. And before you transitioned back to land, how long were you on sea for?
It was about 6.5 years total. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice one. And what was that initial pull into yachting? How did you come about that idea?
So it was actually my mum. She went on a trip to Europe and somehow found herself on a super yacht. And she was like, Maddie, there's like this industry out there. There's girls doing these like amazing jobs. And at first I was like, no. My half sister actually went and did it. And it was a time when social media wasn't really big. So it wasn't like I was seeing loads of things happening on Instagram, but I was seeing her Facebook posts every couple months. And I was like, this looks like a really cool lifestyle. From like the minute I left school, I was obsessed with travel. Like all I would do would be save up and go on another holiday. So my sister was always like, it's really hard work. It's really hard work. And I was like, well, kind of combines like the two things that I love. I'm like a workaholic. I worked from like, I think it's like 14 years and 9 months you can legally start working in Australia. Yeah. And I was like at McDonald's front door, like begging for a job at 14 years and 9 months, and the travel element. So it just like combined the two things that I loved, and eventually I decided to go for it.
Amazing. And what was your journey like? How did you progress? What type of boats did you work on?
Yeah, so pretty much all motorboats. I tried a sailing yacht once. I lasted 1 week. So I started on a 65-meter private and charter as a junior stew, obviously. And then actually after 10 months, I was promoted to second stew on that boat, which was a game changer for my career. From there, like we started doing more charters. I fell in love with the charter world and just the ever-changing nature of it. New guests all the time, obviously the tips. And eventually I was like, I just want to go hard on this charter thing. Like I want to go on a really busy charter boat. So I left. I went and worked on a 55-meter boat as second stew, and we were like back to back with charters. Eventually got promoted to chief stew on that boat. And then, another 2 years on that first boat, 2 years on the second boat. Then I went on to 75 meters chief stew. That didn't quite work out, stayed there a little while. And then I went on my last boat, which was Savannah. And I was like, it was a bit of like a hybrid role. It was like first stew and chief stew. And I was on there for about 2 years as well.
Savannah, the gorgeous Fed ship.
The beautiful Fed ship. Yeah, it was my like dream boat from like the day that it got launched. And yeah, it was always the boat that I was saying to crew agents, like when they ask you, what are you looking for? I'd say like, I'm looking for this, like a Savannah. And they'd always say, well, jobs on that boat never come up, sort of thing. And I was like, okay. And like eventually it did.
Amazing. Sorry I disappeared again there.
That's right.
That's really cool, eh? So my one good mate, Matt Gow, was the captain on there for a while, so I know that it's a good program.
Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, technical fucking issues. Anyway.
That's right.
Okay, so how did you find that your mindset shifted from being a greenie to when you were a seasoned chief stew?
Yeah. So I guess before I started yachting, I was always very good with my money. Like I saved up for a house deposit before I actually went into yachting. So I was always really good at budgeting and saving. But I think then when I got on a boat, you obviously, all of a sudden your living expenses are down to zero and you just see all this money coming in. And no matter what you do, your bank account is always going up. It's almost like no matter what you spend, your bank account is always going up. So in your head, you think, like, I'm a baller. Like, I'm just saving so much money here. But, yeah, you do. I think, I watched myself. I went into yachting as the Australian girl who would wear, like, all my suitcase was full of just, like, T-shirts and jean shorts. And I look at the person that I left yachting as, and it was like this bougie girl in like her Balenciaga sneakers and her like Chloe handbag. I think it's like a very slippery slope. You obviously, you have to enjoy the experience. Like I don't want to take back any of the amazing travel that I did or anything, but yeah, it changes you, especially like being around that money all the time, having so much disposable cash. You've really got to lock in and be smart about it if you want to get, if you've got a goal in mind.
Yeah, you're so right there. And you're not the first or the last stew that will end up with a suitcase, as you mentioned before. And, there's one thing looking back and being like, yeah, okay, all those experiences were worth it. But I find most yachties I've been talking to on the podcast and in the general conversations, the only things they regret is all the stupid shit they bought that doesn't really have that much utility and was actually just bought because we get immersed in, all these luxury ports. And if you just finished the 7-day charter, you've been given a 5-6 grand tip. You walk past the Gucci or Louis Vuitton store, you're like, I can treat myself, I can spend $1 grand on a handbag. But actually probably could have deployed that cash better. But it's the forever hedonic treadmill because we are unfairly exposed to really high net worth individuals. And
I think your microphone's gone. Nah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, where was I? I'll have to cut that out.
Something about this is going to be fun to edit for you.
I know, well, not me. She's going to hate me, the lady that does this. Sorry, Ria. So yeah, I think we sometimes get unfairly exposed to, we don't really get educated on how to deal with all this money, hence the Yachting Investor. And then suddenly you get all this cash and you see how the owners spend their money and suddenly you fall into that lifestyle trap. So I'm glad that I am not the only one seeing this, and good on you for identifying the opportunity that you had all those disposable cash. And that kind of segues into my next question. So you've mentioned to me before that you managed to pay off your property really early on compared to what your mortgage was. And that would have made you a probable equity millionaire in some sense. So tell me about that purchase and how that all went down.
Yeah. So, I don't like saying like I'm a millionaire, because that sounds so weird. But like, if I was to sell all my assets right now, like I would be a millionaire, which is such a weird concept to have because I don't feel like one. But how it happened was I bought the property before I went into yachting. That was like almost like a tick box thing that I wanted to do before yachting, which is really stupid in hindsight, because I was going to pay off my loan so much quicker in yachting than I was on land. So I got my property before I went into yachting. And then I think just, I was obviously sending big chunks of money home each month, sort of thing. Maybe not so much in my first couple years, but after that I slowly started really started putting a big dent in it. My dad started being like, whoa, I think you're going to be able to pay this off. And then also what happened was obviously the property market skyrocketed. So my property pretty much doubled in value in the time. Like I've had it for 10 years now. So that obviously plays a massive part in it. But
yeah.
My loan was for 30 years and I paid it off in, I think, probably 10 years.
That's amazing. And you're still sitting on that property?
Yeah.
Amazing. And you're renting it out?
Yeah. So it makes me an income as well, which is a massive part of why I've been able to start the company as well, because I've, had that money coming in, to be able to move to London and pay for my rent over there, same as me moving to the Gold Coast. It pays for my rent here. So it's like a little gift that just like keeps on giving.
Yeah, and that's such a good, like the analogy I like to use when yacht crew when I tell them why it's important to invest, it's like planting a tree today so that you can sit in the shade tomorrow. Like
yeah.
You put in the hard yards, you took your charter bonus or you took excess cash from your salary and you're like, okay, instead of another Balenciaga bag, let me send this into the mortgage. And today you have free cash flow on an asset that is continuing growing. So well done. Proud of you. Glad you did that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the thing, what you said about the handbag before. It's kind of like, okay, I can have, and yeah, it's great to have the handbags and the travel now, but you can have that one handbag now, or you could invest that money. Maybe you can have 5 handbags later. Like you actually have to think long term with it.
You do, and it's tough. It's tough with our generation. I'm not sure how old you are, but I guess we're pretty much the
34.
Same. Really? Nice. So us, millennials, the ones after us, X, Y, Z, whatever they call, like all very guilty of instant gratification, especially because of social media. You're showing people that you're living the baller life. And for that reason, people don't think long term. So it's really, really important. So a lot of yachties aim to just kind of get on the ladder and like kind of have money to do cool stuff. But what made you double down? What inside of you was like, I can do more? Were you inspired by a family member? Have you always been entrepreneurial? How does that work?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint it, but I think it would probably be my parents. My dad in particular is always, he teaches me like a lot about money. And I guess, like you say, a lot of people, the goal would just be, and it's amazing just to even have a deposit for a house. But I think he's always pushing me past that, not just being like, one house is amazing, because, he started building properties and investing from quite a young age. And now, he was able to retire really young. So I guess I look at it in that way. It's like, well, yeah, one is great, but that's not going to give me enough money, enough income to retire. I'd probably need 4+ properties to be able to do that. So why stop at one? Just go like as hard as I can while I have this money coming in.
Yeah.
And then I think it was also the incentive to like have money to build something after, like you mentioned, the entrepreneurial thing. I knew that I wanted to start a business, but I wasn't sure what, but you obviously are going to need money for it. So it was like I needed a kitty.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you could go back and tell Greenie Madison one thing about money, what would that be?
Ooh. Oh, it would definitely. I wish that I had have started looking at exactly where my money was going each month quicker. That's when things really changed for me, when I went back to my pre-yachting habits and started tracking every single month what category all my money was going into. And some of those categories scared me. And I was like, okay, I need to pull down on this. I need to pull down on that. And I still do that to like this day. So I would have started tracking that much earlier.
That's so important. And that's the number one thing I start doing when I deal with yachties as coaching clients or students, when they come to me out of a place of like real vulnerability and desperation. And they're like, listen, I'm earning $4,000 a month. I'm a second stew. I have no expenses. I don't know where my money goes. And I built this easy to use calculator that I see them, and it's really fascinating to see when they send it back to me, how quickly all of those $50, $60 after work drinks, canapes and aperitivos all build up to a pretty scary amount
Mm-hmm.
for a month. And then also yachties are then not prepared with an emergency fund or a kitty, as you mentioned, for when the shit truly hits the fan. So
Mm-hmm.
your boat gets sold or you get injured and your income dries up and suddenly you have no way or no means to pay any of these bills. So
Yeah. I get a lot of people who come to me in like bad situations, like they're in a boat that's maybe feeling unsafe for them. And they're like, but I can't leave this job because then I won't have an income. And I'm like, where's your safety net? Where's that at least 10 grand you need to figure out how much money you need to support yourself for at least 3 months. And that sits in your bank account. You don't touch it
mhm.
because that's safety, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really, really important. And if you don't track it, you can't manage it. You
No.
can't just guess and assume, yeah, I maybe spend like $1,000 a month on entertainment. You're like, firstly, that's a lot. Secondly, what else? Where's the rest of it going? Is it at least going towards building a future? So yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page with that. Now, your business is called Shore to Sea. I kind of want to go on the sea to shore part of it. So how did the concept of this business realize while you were still a yachty? And how was that transition back to land?
Yeah. So I don't know if I totally knew exactly where it was going when I was leaving yachting. I knew I wanted to do something around helping green stews break into the industry. While I was in yachting, I started building like a little bit of a following on social media, just like posting about the industry, like different tips and tricks. And people were just always coming to me asking, how can I get into it? How can I get into it? And I had a 2-week hotel quarantine on my way back into Australia. So I spent a lot of time just like thinking in that hotel room, like that realization of like, oh, okay, what am I actually going to do with my life now? And that's kind of when the idea of the course slowly started presenting itself to me. What was the other part of that question?
How did you find that transition once you launched a business?
Yeah. And then once I started building out the course, I spent the first 6 months in Australia, but then I actually moved to London because that was like a goal of mine that I wanted to do that when I left yachting. And I found that I think I was really naive about what the living costs were anywhere, let alone one of the most expensive cities in the world. And also how long it would take to get an online course up and running. People kind of think that it's just passive income, like you just make something and it just works for you, and it doesn't. It takes so long. Like I'm 3 years in and I'm still doing re-records and updates of things. So that time it took me to get the business up and running was probably around a year, and most of it, I used my yachting savings to support myself in London while I did that. I knew that I couldn't do it while I had a full-time job. So I used my yachting savings and burnt through a lot of cash. I know it wasn't ideal, but it was the way that I wanted to do it because I wanted to do it as fast as possible. So that was it hit me because I didn't realize how quickly that money was going to go. I thought I pretty much would have had enough for another house deposit, I would say, like a small house deposit. And I no longer have that for a house deposit.
But you do have a business. So
yes.
That's where it's kind of hard to determine your return on investment before you make it. But
yeah,
you were obviously at a point where you were certain that yachting was no longer for you. At least you had the means to try and to trial and error. And whereas a lot of people that want to launch a business have no money, they have to take out a business loan. The business bills, the loan has high interest, and then before you know it, you're bankrupt and everyone hates you.
Yeah. No, it was a huge safety net for me. And like I said, I had the house as well that was providing me a little bit of income. But yeah, if I didn't have those yachty savings, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did at all.
Okay, now as a relatively new business owner, and you mentioning how difficult the course was, what advice can you give to aspiring yachty entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast, thinking about exiting? What are the do's and don'ts in getting started?
Ooh, I would really start looking at things while you're still on board a boat and you still have that income, like steady income coming in. Just trying to, spend your breaks working on things, spend your time working on things, and really, like I said before, kind of figure out how long is it going to take you to get this business off the ground, and how much money are you going to need for that length of time. And make sure you throw enough money in there to go on a holiday and give you some, nice things, because it's a big jump going from like being a rich person to being a poor person. Like I always say to people, like when I'm trying to explain why land is hard for yachties when they leave, I say most people in life do not become really rich and then really broke. Like most of the time, people who are rich just keep going up, like billionaires, they just keep going up. But we go up and then we crash down, and we have to be okay with this for a bit. It's
a fall from grace.
Yeah. So I think just having that understanding that it is going to be hard. I'll never sugarcoat it and be like, land is fantastic and easy and everyone should jump off boats immediately. Like I think it's really hard, and there should be more support for people leaving yachting. But yeah, so to just be like realistic about it, I think.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thanks for that. And
it's really dark.
The sunshine looks good.
Here we go. That's a bit better.
So you obviously work with new crew entering the industry. Do you ever tackle the money topic with them during your course, during your one-on-one consultations? Do you touch on that?
No. So Sure to See is everything like before you land a job or while you're landing a job. I do have a module that is on budgeting and saving, but that's obviously budgeting and saving to get into yachting. So for all your courses, and yeah, I do have like a big budgeting spreadsheet. It's exactly the spreadsheet that I use now day to day to track all of my spending. So I would love to know if like some students actually use it when they get on board, but I haven't started helping people with any of that sort of stuff yet. But it is something like I'm super passionate about.
Yeah, there's definitely a big market in that. And I mean, we're all about collaboration. So maybe in the future, you realize that that's something you want to explore. I'm happy to chat about that. I'm really, really, really passionate about it. And there's a lot of support to help crew, get into the industry, whether it's yachty, like yourself doing it originally and a bit more organically. You obviously have all the crew agents, you have all these type of players in the industry, but I feel like there's a massive lack of support and guidance once you actually land it. and you kind of just get fed to the wolves. And, some of these kids are 18, 19 years old. They came from eating ramen and canned tuna in their dorm rooms to now earning multi thousands of dollars salaries. So you're like, you need a bit of hand-holding. I for sure needed hand-holding, and that is why I think we're both doing something acknowledgeable for these people.
Yeah. And I think the other element to it is you're thrown into like a really fun industry where it's like partying, drinking, like you're in Monaco. Like it is like the dangling of the carrot is like real. There is a lot going on. The temptation, especially for someone young, is really wild.
Yeah, it truly is. And it's better like grab it with both hands. We both know that it gave our 20s and 30s like really, really cool memories and things we can tell people forever. But if you're not careful, you get swallowed whole real quick, and we all have expiry dates. So,
Yes.
Why do you think most yachties piss away their earnings?
Oh, I think one, they're totally unaware of the fact that one day it probably will end, and they're unaware of what that life is going to look like and feel like if they haven't prepared. That's the thing that I'm always trying to explain to my friends. I'm like, guys, you've got such an opportunity here right now to be able to set yourself up so you can have this life that you've got now well into the future. If you don't plan for that now, well, you're going to have that massive spike from like way up here, like buying all your Louis Vuitton handbags and makeup bags and going on holidays, to literally never being able to afford that ever again unless you're in yachting. And that's when people end up in yachting and they hate it because they can't leave because they feel stuck, because they don't know how they're going to make that money again. So yeah, I think it's that. I think it's that everyone else is around you doing it, so you just think it's normal. You need to keep up. I think that especially when you're green, you've got a different salary to like your chief officer, your chief stew, but you seem to spend at their level.
Exactly.
I was just saying to my friend who I live with here, I was saying, do you remember when we used to sit down? We've got our friend, he was our chief officer, and we used to sit down at the table when we go out to a restaurant, and like maybe, you're green, you're young, so you would buy like a cheaper thing on the menu, and the chief officers, all the heads of department would end up going for like the lobster or whatever. But then it was always you split the bill.
Yeah.
And you sat there like, oh, like I didn't spend €100, €150. Like I'm down at like €20 here. So you end up, that was the most painful thing for me, I think. And I think that somehow we need to knock that out of the industry.
That's such a good point. We were at a crew dinner last night to say goodbye to our captain. And exactly that scenario happened. And I could see the poor deckhand was just melting away in his chair when all the cards got split. I told him, I got you. Like I saw that you only ordered a sandwich at the sushi shop. So
I just think that as leaders, we should be better at understanding the situation, understanding that our junior crew are on like a quarter of the salary that we're on, and say, okay, let's actually divide this up properly here. Like we've got the skills to be able to do that. Like, and taking, I don't know. I just think it's so wrong.
Yeah, that is wrong. I'm glad that's probably the best answer I've had to that question on this podcast. Yeah, we really dialed to something specific. I love that.
It's honestly, it scarred me, that memory.
Yeah, it comes from a place of severe pain.
Yeah.
Okay, and then to kind of zoom in on your business for the last bit of our chat. So what does the future hold for Shorty C? How do you see this scaling? What is the dream?
That's such a hard question. I feel like I can't answer it at the moment. At the moment, like I'm upgrading the course. I'm making it as good as it possibly can be. Everyone's kind of always saying to me, you should do this next course or this. I really just want to be like the best at what I do, and really be known for like helping green stews. I've got so many ideas as to where it could go. It's just picking one of those things or just deciding on one, seeing how it works. There's different course ideas. I've always wanted to do retreats for yachties, but I don't want to say too much. I've got a few things in the pipeline, but you're just going to have to wait and see.
You can't give away all your secrets.
Yeah.
And good on you for being aware of, focusing and honing in on one, because I think we're all guilty. As yachties, we get really good at multitasking. I've realized multitasking ends up being the most unproductive thing you can do. Today, one example, first day off in ages, I have been trying to knock out my entire to-do list, of which I did maybe 5% of each task. Now I'm going to go to bed tonight knowing that I failed. So,
yeah. It's not failure. You did 5% of everything. I'm sure that adds up to like 100.
At least I did like 80% of the podcast since I had like 20% technical difficulty. And to finish out, how do people reach out to you? I know you have a big Instagram following. Your socials look great. Your links all look really, really great, by the way.
Thank you.
How can people get hold of you, and how can they try break into the industry via your content?
Yeah, so if you want to follow Sure to See on Instagram, it's Sure to See with 1_. On TikTok, I am Madison Jay _. Or my website is www.shortosea.co. So yeah, all the information on the course and what I do is on my website, on my Instagram. It's basically a step-by-step course, online course for people, for aspiring stews around the world who want to learn how to break into the industry and stand out from the competition. So yeah, have a look on the website and see if it's what you're into.
That's amazing. Yeah, congratulations on all that, and I wish you all the best. I'll be sure to put all of those links and resources in our show notes under the podcast. I'll be sending all the green stews that reach out to me because I think you really know what you're doing, and it looks like it's coming from a place where you really want to help. And I think you can add a lot of real practical value, as opposed to crew agents that just copy and paste stuff from ChatGPT.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.